Hi, everyone. It's Rob, and thanks for listening in today. As always, I greatly appreciate your time. I want to start by expressing my deep gratitude for all of your support and gratitude to my friends Ashish and Jimpa, as well as the team here at Image One for helping to make leading with genuine care a real difference maker in this world. Now, if you haven't added our name to our email list, please do so at donothingbook.com. And if you're a regular listener, you know we've had many important conversations with truly amazing people. So if you're inspired, please share the podcast with your friends, coworkers, and people in your network. My guest today, Vince Tullo. Now, Vince has over 47 years of experience in high-tech global business development, leadership skill enhancement, channel management, mergers and acquisitions, and sales effectiveness. Now, 39 of those years were with General Electric, where Vince had many roles, including VP and General Manager of the factory automation business and VP of Global Sales for the grid automation business, where he worked closely with GE's legendary CEO, Jack Welch. These days, his management consulting business, Clear Choice Strategies, assists companies with a wide range of strategic business needs. Now, Vince is also a board member and VP of Global Sales for Lighthouse Instruments, a global leader in pharmaceutical laser testing technologies. And during our conversation, we discussed the work they are doing with the COVID vaccines. Vince is also a senior advisor for Buying.com, a crypto blockchain-based delivery management company, and has been active in startup and growth strategies. Okay, so please enjoy this wise and fascinating chat with Vince. Vince, it's great to see you today. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I am so grateful.
Good morning, Rob. Good to see you and glad to participate. It's a very timely topic and anything I can do to help.
Thank you so much. So, I wanted to start by asking you about paying attention in life. Though these are these little messages that can sometimes lead to life-changing events. And I was wondering if you could share the story of how you started your career actually with General Electric.
That's 100 years ago. So when I did start, I was the proverbial bottom of the totem pole, and I didn't have a lot of patience to be on the bottom. So I really took the initiative to learn as much as I could while I was at the bottom and figure out if I could know as much about the business as possible that would afford me as many opportunities as possible. So I spent an awful lot of time understanding various aspects of the business, top to bottom. I forced my way into people's offices and pick their brains and kind of understand, what was going on in their world, what was important to them, and what is important to the business. And I use that as a learning opportunity. You find out, people will talk when you want to understand what's important to them. They'll tell you. And then I learned an awful lot from that experience, and then use that to further develop, my skills, position myself for future advancement in the company. So I really got started at the bottom, but I worked real hard to try to get out of that into a more important role where I could use my skills more appropriately.
I remember a story you shared with me when you were coming out of college and you got this phone call from somebody in Bloomington, Illinois. I was wondering if you could share that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm New York born and bred, and coming out of school, I had lots of job offers in the New York metropolitan area. I really didn't want to leave New York, and I accepted the job with GE because I thought it was the best. It was in GE's electronics business in New Jersey, and it was a great fit for me and a great business. But a couple of weeks, or about 4 weeks before the job was to start, GE sold that business off, and they called me and says, unfortunately, that job is no longer available, but we have a job for you in Bloomington, Illinois. And I said, well, thank you very much. I'm not moving to Bloomington, Illinois. And I started going back to the other companies and saying, I'm only kidding that I turned you down. I really would like to reconsider. And during that process, a gentleman in Bloomington, Illinois, who had no real skin in the game. It really impacted my life in lots of ways. He found out that that I was no longer coming to Bloomington. He called me one day and says, "Hey, what's on your mind? Why are you doing this?" And I told him I wanted to stay in New York, etc. He says, "Look, I really have no skin here. I have no interest particularly in what you do or don't do." He says, "But I looked at your background and I said, you're making a mistake, that you're leaving a great opportunity with GE, and you really don't understand quite what the company can afford you. Why don't you give it a shot, and come out here for a year. If you don't like it, you go back to New York. I guarantee you'll be successful in what you do, but I think you'll find the company will afford you all kinds of learning and growth opportunities." And so I took that to heart. I didn't know this guy at all. He didn't know me, and I really had no skin in it either. But I said, well, if that's the kind of person that's willing to step out and give me a call, that says something about the company. And I made it. And 40 years later, I retired. So if that call didn't happen, if I was busy that day or whatever, who knows where I would have been. But it was a life-changing event for me. The message is, here's a guy who the company made me an offer, but really didn't understand what was important to me. There were lots of things that they didn't quite understand. They made me an offer, but maybe they didn't understand everything. This guy took it himself to understand me, and help me understand what the company could do to help me. That all, not only did it change my life, but it became a very important thing that I do every day, is understand the other person. The more you understand what's going on inside their head, the more you can do to help them achieve their goals. Ultimately, you achieve your goals as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. So you were with G for 39 years. And I think for most of that time, Jack Welch, who is quite legendary, was the CEO, correct?
That's correct. I started under Reg Jones, but pretty quickly, Jack Welch took over, and I had the opportunity to work with Jack many times. Kind of a very interesting guy, one of the smartest guys I ever met. Had these clear, cold blue eyes that could read your soul when he would talk to you. You really felt that he was reaching down and he understood what you were thinking before you had a chance to even say it. But was also extremely fair and fast reaction. His attention to detail was just amazing. But his ability to grasp the situation quickly. I don't know how many customer events I was at that, a comment would be made by a customer and the world would change before the dinner was over. He would change organizations, he'd change structures, he'd fix problems. He was just an incredibly passionate guy. Again, I learned a lot, from him and how he went about running GE at the time. And it was a great opportunity to be part of his organization.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious on two fronts. One is, what would you advise emerging leaders, and what would you advise seasoned leaders based on some of the things that you learned during your time working at GE and working with Jack Welch?
I really two, I would think. If you're an emerging leader, you clearly have to learn more about the world in front of you. No matter how good you are, no matter how much of a superstar you are, no matter how many accolades you got up until now, you don't know half of the story. So you gotta learn and understand more about business, more about strategy, more about goals and objectives, more about the world, more about cultures, things that are you're much broader than your experiences. If you want to succeed going forward, you have to take in all these initiatives that are not taught in school, that are not in a book per se, but it's how business, works every day. And so if you take a very narrow view of the world, you can, but your path will be rockier and not as clear. If you take a broad view, you'll have more opportunities and you'll be better in doing it. If you're a seasoned person, again, you've been around the world, you've done a lot. You also have to be more aware of the changes that have occurred. Just because you did it like that 20 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work today. So you have to also be willing to change. You have to listen far more than you talk. One of the expressions I always like to use is you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. Always listen twice as much as you talk. You'll find out that you'll learn a lot more. So if you're a seasoned person, you have to lead with empathy. You have to lead by understanding. You have to lead by listening to people, not so much talking about what you did. What you did doesn't matter. It's trying to understand the individual and what they're trying to get done within the organization. So I look at both of those are similar, but one's a little more introspective, a little more extrospective. If you're just coming out of your assignments or you're moving into a higher organization.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk a little bit about ethics in life and business. I guess, for some people, ethics seems really obvious, but for some reason, it isn't always that obvious. And I'm just curious about your thoughts and experiences around ethics in life and business and kind of what it means to you.
Wow, that's a great question. Reputation is such an important thing in how you get things done in life. Your personal reputation, your family reputation, your business reputation, your colleagues' reputation, all those are how you get stuff done. I mean, nothing you do anymore today can be done as an individual. I mean, you can't be a husband without having a spouse who's integral to what you're doing. You can't be part of a organization without the whole organization helping you. So I've always said that you can't be an individual. So your reputation is important. And ethics play into that you get one shot at a bad reputation. So ethics, you have to do everything ethically, sound, transparent, and open. And that'll build credibility and confidence that what you're doing, makes sense. And a lot of people look at what they're doing and they have to make a decision, and they kind of have a moral decision, an ethical decision, and a business decision. I say you got to have 3 out of 3. So if you're going to make a decision, if you can't do that in all 3 of those characteristics, then you shouldn't do it. And if one of those is wrong or negative, then don't do it. And one of the things that Jack Welch used to say actually was, when we're if you're sending an email or sending a note, would you be comfortable that particular comment or note would be published on the front page of the New York Times? And that was a strong test to say, you're making a decision, but if the world knew about that, would you be proud of that? Or would the world look at that and say that was really a bad ethical decision? So you always have to keep that in context, that what you're doing, people will be measuring you on your ethics and values, and you have to always act in a way that is responsible to all of those.
Mm-hmm. You had talked earlier when we spoke about in leadership being the ultimate coach and mentor. And I'm wondering, how can we cultivate this coaching skill, this mentorship skill as a leader?
Really, really good question. Again, my experiences there was very interesting. When I first joined the GE business in Charlottesville, Virginia, I was given responsibility for one of the businesses, but I had no direct reports. It was a matrix organization structure, and I had full P&L responsibility, but no direct reports. And I remember going into the CEO's office the first day, and he says, I'm going to measure you not on your results, but on how other people tell me you are doing. And it changed my thoughts about how you manage and lead. These people did not work for me directly. I mean, I could not fire them. If you don't do this, I'll fire you. Traditional hard-handed management style. I had to coach them, mentor them, make them do things that were good for the business because they wanted to. And so that really set me into a coaching, mentoring role, and the mindset anyway. And then as I grew and developed and started to have a large organization that I was responsible for with direct reports, I quickly found that I got most bang for the buck out of mentoring and coaching people that either worked for me or didn't work for me. And I always said, I don't care if you're in my organization or not. Matter of fact, I still do that today. I don't care if you're a GE person or a non-GE person. I always found I'm always ready, willing, and able to coach, mentor people to aspire to whatever their goals are, personal or business-wise. And I probably did more of that in my career than I did just about anything. Was mentoring and coaching. And what happened in doing that was a couple of things. I think the individual felt more of a connection with me, whether I was a manager or not. That there was a true understanding, a meeting of the minds about what was important to them and how I was going to help them achieve those. I was also be able to give them good feedback as to, hey, you want to do this, but you don't have the skills to do that. So let's figure out the training required to do that. Or I would give them examples of behaviors that they did that were good or behaviors they did that were bad. And so by coaching and mentoring them versus giving them a performance appraisal is a document. It's hard. Here's your job. Here's your goals. You can get caught up in the performance appraisal, but the coaching and mentoring establish a true connection. And then over time, these people would come back to me again and again and again for, hey, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this person. What do you think? Can you help me? Can you give me some advice? I retired actually from GE in 2013. And even today, I have people from GE calling me, asking for coaching and advice. And I continue to do that. I'm honored that they continue to call me. But it really is a connection to what's important to them. And if I can give some help and guidance and direction and they feel good about it, I feel good that I'm learning about, what their goals are and what they're trying to do and get some satisfaction out of seeing them achieve their goals as well.
That's great. So you had this opportunity where you were leading a partnership with one of the businesses, and it had locations all over the world: India, Singapore, North America, Europe. And my understanding is you began to really learn about different cultures during that time. And what I'm curious about is if you could share what you were learning and what you did learn about people, about their cultures, and how you get everyone to work toward a similar goal together.
Yeah, that was a major event in my life, in my career. When I took that particular job with GE, it was in the midst of the globalization trend that was happening around the world. Instead of being a national company, all companies were being driven to be global. The only way to get continued growth and success as the world shrank, got more connected, you needed to be global. So one of my responsibilities was to develop this business on a global basis. And to do that required several things. We had to do manufacturing globally. We had to do sales globally, and we had to have channel partners globally. It was really three elements of our growth strategy. And so to implement that, I spent ridiculous amount of time on the road. I was spending 200 plus nights a year in hotels, but I had the chance to go to many countries, understand the unique needs of the countries that are there, whether it be resources or people or processes or manufacturing or economy or government. Had to learn all that. Doing business in Japan is different than China, is different than Indonesia, is different than Singapore. They're different. And there is no one answer to any of them. And we were at the time, trying to figure this out. So I spent a lot of time with government people. I spent a lot of time with other business people. I had a chance to network with IBM and Kodak, Colgate-Palmolive, other companies that I had done business with in North America. They were far further ahead in some of the globalization aspects. And so I tapped into some of their strengths and what they were able to do in those countries. and then put forth a plan for GE to be able to do that. So what I had to do is I had to learn individual cultures, how they make decisions, whether it's hierarchical or team-based, whether they're transparent and clear, whether they're government-owned or not. They're what's important to them as a business. It may not be just financial. It may be on awareness and market presence. But each one of these countries had a different set of dynamics that I had to learn and understand. But I also felt that the only way I could do it was spending time with them, and quality time 24/7. So being there often, being there when they expected me to be there, and then meet them on their terms whenever simple things. We're going to do a teleconference, let's do it 3 o'clock in the morning U.S. time. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon China time. That's okay with me. We have to be very sensitive to time zones. That's a very simple one. But when I went over there as many times as I did, and you have a chance to have dinner, you have a cocktail, you learn more about their family and needs. Over time, they start building more confidence that I'm there for them as well as I am there for GE, and that afforded me a tremendous opportunity to learn different cultures, languages, food, what's important to them, and then we GE were able to put in front a process and an organization, a structure to be able to work there. And so being in those countries, I was on the board of directors of those joint ventures. That had to go there 4 times a year. I spent a ridiculous amount traveling, but knowing that I was there on a regular basis also said that he's committed. He's not just flying in and flying out, never to be seen again. You got to make your time important, and you got to understand the people and what they're expected to do as well.
I'm curious, sometimes wherever we live, we get really focused on what's happening in our community or our country or whatever. Now, when you start traveling the world at first, like you did, when you first started to really get out there and start to recognize that, as much as we might be different in some of our cultures, we're very much the same. Did you start to see the world in a different way when you got home?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. I mean, it changed everything about me. Being much more aware of different cultures, being much more, these cultures are not just in those countries. Those cultures are here in the US. I mean, you can't drive 10 minutes and you have multiple cultures. So it was an unbelievably enlightening experience for me. To learn about these cultures. And then I was able to use that to my benefit here domestically, whether it be friends, family, or business people, it's the same. And so the only thing that's different is the distance. I mean, 5,000 miles or 5 miles, it's the same culture, it's the same understanding, it's the same process. And so having that opportunity just made me able to understand it better. I was more aware, it was more clear, and I was able to do something about it in a way that was more open than closed.
I'm curious, like outside of business, did you start to feel different? Did you start to, see the world in a different way? Maybe the things that might have gotten under your skin or got you caught up with things normally, did you start to think, when I was in India, I saw X, Y, or Z, and over here, yeah, that's nothing. Just things like that, the little things that might have opened your eyes.
All the time. And what, if anything, what it does, it takes you out of your fixed zone, your comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
Just because you've done it this way since you were born doesn't mean that it has to be that way going forward. There are certain things that you want to say, since I was born, and it gives you a positive trajectory. But also, since you were born, it could be blinders. It could be a lack of understanding. It could be a bias. It could be anything. All these experiences just made me more aware of these, that don't let them be blinders. Don't let it be a bias. Try to understand the other person. And one of the things that I have used many times, I took many courses in GE. a zillion courses, management courses, business courses. Just one thing GE did was train you all the time. One course that I took that I still use today, that I think applies to everything in life. The name of the course was Selling from the Customer's Viewpoint. And what it was all about was, I sit at a table, you sit across from me from the table, and then I have to sell to you from your viewpoint. It was a process to make me try to think like you think. What's important to Rob? What's Rob's measurements? How does he get stuff done? What are his interests? And then I position my presentation to you around that. So in effect, I'm selling from your viewpoint. It was very effective to our salespeople because it allowed them to don't go with a brochure, don't go in with a product, try to understand what the customer's mind is thinking, and then tailor your presentation, whether it be value, whether it be on technology, whether it be on solution, whatever. Do those things, you'll end up being more successful. Well, we used that a lot, and it was very successful to sales guys. But I took that one step further. I said, well, wait a minute. This could work with my wife. I could have a better understanding of what's important to my wife if I think about it that way. So rather than saying, honey, let's go to this place on vacation, maybe I better understand what she'd like to do for vacation, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and then I said, well, that's the same thing for my friends, rest of my family, business associates, everything. You always have to I use that term, selling because of viewpoint, but I turn that around. If I better understand what's important to you, and if I can better relate to what's important to you, then we'll have a better relationship, more connection, and be more homogeneous if we do that. And that's a skill I continually do today. I mean, that's something I always do today in my consulting business as well as my personal life.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand the person on the other end of the table, you'll be better off.
One thing that's a point of curiosity for me is for those folks that, like yourself, that had a period of time in their life where they were traveling a lot. Like you said, you were in hotel rooms 200 nights a year, and internationally, not even just domestic in the United States. And I'm curious on two fronts. First, how do you prepare yourself for your day when you're in a new culture and everything, all the stimuli that's going on around that? And secondly, how do you prepare your body and your mind so you can really be at your best?
Well, I could write a book on that. That's a great question. A lot of people have asked me that. So I looked at probably in three different categories. One is preparation pre-trip. I spent a lot of time preparing for the trip. Understanding where I'm going, who I'm meeting, try to understand what the goals and responsibilities are, try to better understand what cultural norms would be required if it's my first time into that country, and understand everywhere from immigration to hotel policy to food to communication. Learn as much as possible in advance. And then set up in the meeting setup is decide, okay, what's the goals and objectives of the meeting, and communicate that to the people I'm be visiting with. What's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish on this trip? And then I would always use the long trip home to very quickly summarize what happened, what was good, what was bad, what worked, what didn't work, and then give people a very quick update that, thanks for coming. Let me understand, how to do that. So preparation was really most important. And then each time I would go, I'd build upon that. I'd learn more about things I didn't learn the first time, because you're right, you can get overwhelmed by the sights and sounds, and sometimes get distracted. That's all part of the experience. But building upon each one as you go. I also had a very, very strict routine on flights, on preparing for flights. I would start 2 days early than the flight, and changing my body clock. I would start eating on the time zone that I was going to. And then when I got on the plane, I would immediately be on the new time zone and make sure that I would eat and or sleep on the plane on the new time zone to try to get acclimated a little bit sooner. So I had lots of tips and tricks about, global travel, but it really comes down to preparation, understanding, learning, and then building upon each one many, many times. I've been to India 15, 20 times, China 25 times. And each time I'd go, I'd learn more based on the previous experiences. Not something you can learn once and be done. It takes a dedicated commitment.
Right. So now one of the things that you're doing that you're up to in your quote unquote retirement is you're a senior advisor to buying.com, which is a cryptocurrency blockchain delivery management company. And I'm curious what you're learning about that business and how crypto and blockchain technology might shape the future of our society.
Yeah, that's as I said earlier, I am a continuous learner. I'm always looking to, even though I retired in 2013, I didn't stop working. I started my consulting company, and I had about 8 or 10 different clients around the world. It was getting to the point where I was working full time, and that's not really why, I retired. I narrowed it down to one company, a pharmaceutical technology company that's actually doing testing for all the vaccines. So I got it down to one to make the time more manageable, and then the opportunity came up on buying.com. So buying.com is kind of an Uber Eats or a Uber taxi approach on steroids. It's the opportunity to deliver anything you want. They can deliver like concierge stuff. You can deliver contracts. You can deliver food. You can deliver toilet paper, whatever you want. So it uses a very complex algorithm to be able to understand market dynamics and put in place all the tools and capabilities to do on-demand delivery systems. Well, it was so complex that they decided to use blockchain technology to provide the infrastructure. And blockchain is really it's an accounting spreadsheet in the cloud, but with incredible breadth and depth, full transparency, very secure. It allows the transmission of data instantaneously throughout the entire ecosystem. So you'll find many companies are starting to use blockchain as their infrastructure technology. It's kind of invisible in the back room, but it really is how information flows and how a ledger actually checks and balances, pluses and minuses, how things go in and things come out. It could be inventory, it could be pricing, it could be market information, all using blockchain. So blockchain is a new and upcoming structure. Any of the kids, the younger people that I coach today, you better get smart on blockchain. The world is moving to blockchain faster than you know it is. You have to be a blockchain expert now, otherwise you're not going to be successful. It really is it's a number one priority for people to learn and understand. And so I jumped on this thing to help, but also to learn. They also use crypto as the currency to exchange. And again, because it's fast, secure, and global, is not you don't have to worry about currency exchange and fluctuations. They actually have their own coin, like Bitcoin is a coin, buying.com has their own coin, but it allows them to do business, to pay bills, to pay people, to get receivables, all done on crypto, on blockchain. So crypto and blockchain became, for me, an incredible learning experience. What I was able to help them with is how to grow their business model. I was not the expert in crypto and blockchain, but I certainly had the business experience. So I gave them some business knowledge. I learned the crypto side, and together I've been able to help them. They are pushing their what's called ICO. In the crypto world, you don't have IP. IPOs are in the stock world. ICOs are in the crypto world.
Jeez.
Their ICO is going out in the next week or two. And so that'll be floated on exchanges just like Bitcoin or other coins will be floated on exchanges. It's been a great learning experience to kind of see them grow. I've learned a lot. My word is, if you don't have it, if you're not an expert in crypto and in blockchain, you better be right away, because it's going to run over everybody.
Great feedback. Just out of curiosity, when you're doing an ICO, do you do a road show and, meet with all the,
Yep.
You do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Same thing.
Globally. Yeah. Well, we've got global investors, global conferences. There are ICO boards. There are ICO, you got to go through the Security and Exchange Commission. It's very similar to an IPO, except you're not doing a public offering of stock. It's basically a public offering of currency. So that's why it's called ICO versus IPO. And you can go just Google ICO. You'll see they're happening all the time. It is the fastest growing exchange going on today. A lot of people are trying to figure it out. There's a lot of negative stuff that happens with it as well, whether people are using crypto for nefarious matters and hiding money and drug cartels and all kinds of potential negatives. But I don't look at that as any different than anything else. It is just a move towards electronic commerce that is going to change how everybody is doing. Amazon's doing it already on blockchain. You'll see most of the big companies using blockchain. They may not advertise it because it's not something they want. It's not external to them. It's an internal process. Difference with companies like buying.com, it's internal and external. So if you are going to be part of that structure in delivery material and supply chain, then you have to be on blockchain to be able to use their company. So you have to be an expert in blockchain to be part of that. Whereas maybe on the other ones, you may not do.
Interesting. And then you mentioned this other venture that you're working with, Lighthouse Instruments, and some of the work that they're doing around COVID and the vaccine. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, this is really exciting. And I've been with them now 6 or 7 years. It's also a startup company at the University of Virginia, at the physics department. They developed a laser-based detection system that can shine a laser through glass and measure certain things. So they invented this laser, and then they found that the market for it's in pharmaceutical. So when you go to the doctor and you get an injection, it could be a vaccine, could be insulin, could be a flu vaccine, could be the COVID vaccine, virtually anything. You'll see the little glass vials that are about that big, and there's a liquid in the bottom. At the top, there's an airspace before the stopper. So what they've developed is a laser that will shine through the glass into the vial and measure percent oxygen, percent carbon dioxide, percent moisture, and atmospheric pressure, non-contact, using a laser. So most of these drugs, and you've probably read a lot about the vaccines that are coming out for COVID. First of all, they're at cold storage, minus 70 degrees C. And then the expansion and contraction of the cap and the vial happens with going from cold temperature to room temperature. That could cause potential leaks. These vaccines, and most of the vaccines I mentioned, whether it be flu vaccines or insulin, are very sensitive to oxygen and or moisture. As a matter of fact, most of these medicines, if oxygen gets inside the vial, it won't hurt you when you get the vaccine, but it will lose its potency. It will no longer be effective. So if it's a cancer drug, it'll no longer be effective. The vaccine won't be effective. So the FDA regulates a lot of this and the requirements. So this company built these laser-based inspection machines that can do 200 a minute. These vials coming down a assembly line, 200 a minute, and it's measuring the percent oxygen or carbon dioxide moisture pressure inside the vial, kicks out the bad ones, good ones go to packaging. And so it's been incredible. We've been involved in every vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, AstraZeneca, Oxford, all of them. And we've been helping them develop the methodology for packaging as well, and making sure the testing goes well. So when you get your vaccine, it's been tested by Lighthouse someplace in the world. It's been a great experience to see how that whole business is growing, but it's also in an industry where you can actually see it. when I got my vaccines, it was kind of, we tested this stuff, so I know it's good. It was a great experience.
If I understand correctly, part of your role at the company is your VP of Global Sales, overseeing 25 global salespeople. Is that correct?
Correct. So I have 3 hats actually. When I first started, I was on the board, kind of giving them strategic direction. But quickly, as I put forth some of the GE 101 practices, we needed to have more organizational structure. We needed to have more global growth. So I put together, a global sales team. We hired people around the world. Right now, they all work for me. One of my jobs is to find a full-time global sales leader going forward. But right now, they all report to me. And the whole idea was to try to, grow this company globally. So again, using the same things I learned at GE, how we're going to sell stuff in China, how we're going to sell stuff in Japan, how we're going to sell stuff in India, what kind of technology, where we're going to make it, what are the partners, what are the cultures, import and export, same stuff. It's really not any different. Yeah, the technology is a little bit different, but the issues are the same. And so I've been helping them, grow on a global basis, as well as managing the sales team day in and day out.
Well, I just have to say, what a retirement you're having, and thanks for inspiring all of us younger folk out here.
I do have a lot going on. I do try to manage my work time. I try to keep it to 3 days a week. Sometimes it gets beyond that, but I do have 3 grandkids and a couple of kids and a loving wife, and so I got to be sensitive. I'm being pulled in many different directions at all time, and really, one of the messages to find that balance between work and life. Whether you're not retired, you're still working full time. You got to have time for yourself. You got to have time for your family. You got to have time for work. All 3 again were very important to me growing up and being part of GE. I always felt if I was not taking care of my family, I couldn't do my job. Wouldn't take care of my job, I wouldn't have a family, and I have to take care of myself, whether it be my hobbies or working out or whatever. All 3 have to. You have to look out for yourself. You have to look out for your family. Look out for your job. That's life. That's the way things are. You have to do that all the time.
Wise words. Vince, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Helping us bring this conversation of leading with genuine care to the forefront. And to all the loyal listeners, I greatly appreciate you spending time with Vince and I today. And I wish you all much love and gratitude.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.